Let's talk about Shamima Begum, because you, not unlike many other people, took the view at the weekend that she should be brought here, that she is our responsibility. I disagree with you, and I said last week that I'm more than happy for us not to spend any more money on her. So why not make your case for those who haven't seen it?
I didn't really ever intend to get involved in this. I hadn't previously done so, and a few weeks ago I found myself in a debate elsewhere in which I had to come to a conclusion, and did. It wasn't. There weren't perhaps all that many people listening and watching at the time, but I thought I'm honour bound when the thing next comes up at any prominence to make it plain this is what I think. It would be dishonest to pretend or keep quiet about it. I don't. You mustn't get confused. I'm sure you're not, but other people say, well, are you arguing in her favour? No.
No, of course not.
I've not met her. I'm sure if I did I wouldn't like her. I think that many of the things that she's said are obviously deeply unpleasant, and most importantly of all, I think, if she comes back here and there is evidence against her that amounts to criminal charges, then she obviously ought to be tried on those charges in a proper court of law with an impartial jury. And if she's then convicted, then she should be punished for it. But that's where I really get off this particular train. It's absolutely essential to me that people are not punished until they've been tried and found guilty. This is the way around we do it. And frankly, to go around disapproving of terrorists is pretty ludicrous if you don't defend the fundamentals of a free society, and that is that people are not punished without the rule of law, without due process. That's what Magna Carta says. That's what makes us different from all the other places on earth, and also what makes us different from terrorists.
So are you
very given to killing people without trial.
So are you concerned more about whether she's brought back here, or more concerned about whether her passport should have been taken off her? Because my overriding, I suppose, piece of evidence is a difficult piece of evidence to swallow, because it's one that I don't know what it is. But what it is the information that's been supplied by the intelligence agencies to the court to say, basically, this woman is such a danger, and here's why, that she cannot ever be brought back here.
But on that precedent, if MI5 goes to the government and leaks to the press that it's got terrible things against you, which mean that you really should be locked up in the Tower of London, and you're dragged off to the Tower of London, then basically that's the same thing. I'm afraid.
Well, it is.
I don't have very great trust.
Except for the fact that I didn't go and join ISIS in a foreign country.
Well, no, you didn't. But people could hold other things against you, and also the other thing is you weren't 15 or anything like it. You aren't an immature and not particularly bright or well-educated young woman who's been sucked into some ridiculous cult. And one of the other things I said was that you may think that I'm pretty awful now, but I'm much better than I was when I was 15. I was terrible when I was 15. And I think we have to bear that in mind.
But I did have this conversation. Somebody rang in the other last week to say, you must remember when you were 15, to which I said, yeah, I do remember. I went on a holiday to America with my school. I pinched a couple of things from some shops. I took some souvenirs, took some pictures, and I came home. What I didn't do was join up with some, death cult terrorist group, because I thought it would be a good idea.
If you'd been unlucky in your pinching stuff from shops, you could have ended up in the American penal system, which could have been quite hard on you for the rest of your life. It could have ruined your entire life. I'm slightly unenthusiastic about people who get very, very moralistic about the actions of others. Anyway, I find this our basic struggle is to keep control of ourselves and to stop doing bad things ourselves. That's also an element. I think there's a lot of people who visit their own anger on the person when they might be better off examining themselves. That's a general rule
in ordinary circumstances, I would tend
very tricky about the way in which Her Majesty's government has behaved. I think it is ridiculous to maintain that this woman who's never been to Bangladesh or applied for Bangladeshi citizenship is a Bangladeshi citizen. It's stretching things. If she went there, if they ever did let her in, they've said they'd execute her anyway.
That's what her lawyers say.
She does not genuinely have. That's what the Bangladeshi government says, as I understand it. She does not genuinely have dual citizenship, and it's a fantasy. And I'm shocked. I mean, the appeal court upheld this point, and I'm shocked by the behaviour of the so-called Supreme Court in overturning that, because I think dispassionate judges should have known better. But I have a low opinion of the Supreme Court anyway. I think it's fundamentally tricksy of the government to pretend that she has dual nationality and that they therefore have no responsibility.
Well, to be fair, they haven't said
right.
They haven't said that she's got dual nationality. They've said that she could seek another nationality if she so wished, and she could. And just because they're going to say that they're going to execute her, which they haven't actually said to her. I mean, there are rules for terrorism that would mean that she would face execution. Well, however, one of the issues about her, guilt or otherwise, is that if she was to come back here and be tried, nobody's quite sure what would you try her on, because would you try her on things that she's said? There isn't really any evidence of anything that she's done.
These days, I mean, I don't particularly approve of this myself, but these days, since the Blair government, there are all kinds of offences connected to terrorism, such as glorifying terrorism and actions.
Well, she's already committed a crime by joining ISIS.
Yeah, I think. I'd never say anyone's committed a crime until you've seen the evidence, and
she's admitted that she joined ISIS. I think we know that.
Okay, if these things are not really central to my point. My point really is this: there are two things. First of all, this is fundamentally a weak government. It's weak on terrorism. It's weak on terrorism in several ways, and the way I would first of all point out is that this is a government which has given into and continues to give into terrorism in Northern Ireland, and gave into the IRA and invited Martin McGuinness, a known leader of a terrorist organisation, to have dinner with the Queen in white tie and tails at Windsor Castle. So they're not tough on terrorism. This is also a government which, following its, frankly, incomprehensibly crazy policy in Syria, at one stage found itself in bed with an organisation called the Al-Nusra Front, which is an affiliate of Al-Qaeda. So quite where they stand on terrorism, I don't know. And it's also a government, and this is the crucial thing, and I think one of the reasons for this grandstanding, which cannot control our own borders. People come into this country daily about whom we know absolutely nothing in very large numbers, and they refuse to address it in any serious way. But this makes them look tough in the eyes of of the mob.
It's actually worse than that, isn't it?
And therefore, this is the problem. Don't be manipulated by this. If you think this is a government that's weak on terrorism, don't be fooled by their treatment of this woman into thinking that they've suddenly become tough.
No, I don't think they are tough on terrorism any more than you do. And in fact, there's some 250 or 300 odd people who have been to Syria and joined ISIS in a similar way to Shamima Begum, who are already back here, who have already been accepted back into the country. We don't know exactly where they all are. Some of them might be in prison. But I just think that, people are sick to death of this individual. People don't want to see any more public money wasted on her. And given that she said so many things detrimental to this country, it's almost as though she has absented herself as a UK citizen. Whether you say she can't do that or not, she more or less has. And now she thinks that she can come back. People, I think, are generally just sick to death of it.
Well, I don't blame them for being sick to death of it, but that doesn't alter the fact that there remain principles of justice. And there are also principles of the freedoms of somebody who's a citizen of this country to enter and leave this country freely, and I think she is entitled to do so, and I don't think any good legal position has been made out so that she shouldn't. If she comes back and she's liable to be prosecuted and comes under criminal penalties, then okay. But I don't. Also, to make it a matter of money seems to me to be dodging it. We all know.
Well, the money
we all know that the government wastes huge quantities of money on rubbish. As far as I'm concerned, money spent on justice is never wasted, and it has to be one of the things that we absolutely insist on, because it is the basis of our civilization. For nearly 1,000 years now, we've differed from other places because we insist on justice and the rule of law.
Yes, but our justice
and the presumption
system
of innocence.
But our justice system, I believe now, is not to be trusted.
I don't disagree with you.
I would not trust the justice system.
That's not an argument for undermining it by refusing to apply it when you have to in a case which has become, whether we like it or not, a major case.
Yeah. No, it is a major case.
And
but
we can't, and therefore, if in this instance of a major case, we turn around and say we're not prepared to spend the necessary money to do justice, then we are treating justice with contempt.
Well, maybe so, but there are two reasons why. There are two reasons why I think this can happen, i.e., that she can be left where she is. One, she has had her citizenship taken away, whether you like it or not. That has happened. Whether you think that should have happened is another story, but the fact is that it has happened. So this country now owes her nothing. It doesn't owe her a debt of justice. It doesn't owe her. Also, the crimes were committed in Syria. If somebody came here from Syria and committed crimes in London, you wouldn't expect them to be taken back to Syria to stand trial. She would stand trial for the crimes in London, would she not?
Yeah.
So therefore she should stand trial for any kind of crime in the country in which she currently lives.
Well, the crimes of which she is accused or which are alleged against her are definitely crimes against the laws of this country, and she is a citizen of this country. And if she said, "I never want to come back here again, I'm not coming here," then it wouldn't be so much of an issue.
But her crimes were not committed here.
She does say she wants to come back here, and therefore she places herself in that case.
I don't care where she wants to go.
Under the rules of British justice. So if she is to be prosecuted, and if there is evidence which makes that justifiable, then that will happen here. I'm not particularly au fait with how the Syrian prosecution service works, but there doesn't seem to be much sign of anybody
it's better than
trying
ours.
to prosecute her out there.
Well, I mean, all I know is that the only other sort of international cases that we've ever looked at have all involved people being sentenced to horrible sentences, possibly even death sentences, in other countries because they've committed crimes in those countries. Remember the case of the women in the Bangkok Hilton? Remember the case of the Colombian drug smugglers?
Yeah.
You know, these were people who had committed crimes in those countries, were sentenced in those countries, and then we intervened to bring them back here because it was a humanitarian thing to do. In this woman's case, she's not British anymore. She's committed crimes overseas. We owe her nothing.
That's your first premise, that she's not British anymore. I don't think that's a settled fact. I think it's
a fact that she has no UK
citizenship. At the very least, it's arguable. I don't think she has any other nationality. I think
I don't care what sort of nationality
she was born here
and
brought up here. She went to school here. This is the language that she speaks. This is the passport that she holds. I think it's a dodge to pretend that she has any other nationality.
Well, yeah, but the fact is she has been stripped of her nationality.
Has she been lawfully stripped of it, both under British nationality?
According to our laws, yes.
Well, I don't believe so. Under British nationality law and under international law, you cannot make somebody stateless, which is what we have done. And there she is. She's stateless in Syria.
But we break international laws whenever we feel like it.
But should we?
Well, yeah, because we shouldn't be.
In favour of that?
Yeah, of course I am, because I don't believe
then you
that.
Call down on yourself all kinds of lawlessness. If you go abroad and something horrible happens to you and you fall foul of the legal system of some other country, then you have by saying what you've just said cast aside the protections of law which would otherwise have come to your aid. All of us are protected by law. It's very easy in an individual case to get carried away by emotion and say, all right, in this case, toss her in the brig, throw away the key, melt it, don't have any further trial. She doesn't deserve any more consideration. You then have to work out whether this could ever apply to you. Almost all of us, at some point or other, might fall into a position where we would really long for the protections of law, which you have yourself dismissed as unimportant and something that doesn't matter to you now. The point about law is that it applies universally.
Yeah, but there are lots of laws which don't apply in all countries, right? There are plenty of laws, for example, like the death penalty, which doesn't apply here.
True.
So you could go to America, you could kill somebody, you could be found guilty of first-degree murder, you could be on death row. You might, because you're British and because of the relationship between Britain and America, get off that, and they might be persuaded by an argument which was made by the British government to let you go and to come back here. But it wouldn't help the people who you had done wrong. And the same way, she has committed all sorts of horrible crimes against the people of Syria.
She's accused of all sorts of horrible crimes.
Well, she's admitted lots of them.
Well,
hasn't she?
Has she?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that she's admitted crimes, but I mean, whether she has or not, it remains the case that if the state is to punish her for them, then she has to admit them in court.
In Syria.
If she pleads guilty, in a court, then she subjects herself to the punishment of those crimes in whatever court.
But should she not be tried where she is?
She doesn't want to stay where she is.
Well, I don't care what she wants.
I do, because I think she has, as the holder of a British
not any longer.
Well, I think she's been wrongfully deprived of it.
Well, the court system here doesn't agree with you.
I know.
However, there is somebody who does agree with you.
Disagree with these.
Yeah.
With these
Jonathan Hall, KC, no less, the reviewer of terrorism legislation. He says he's going to argue that she should be allowed to return from Syria because this is the position taken by key allies, including the United States.
Well, okay.
You've got him on your side.
That's another good argument. I have all kinds of people on my side. The most amazing thing that happened to me yesterday on Twitter was that John Sweeney, a man with whom I have constant often quite rude and personal rows,
Yeah.
almost everything, chimed in to
Right.
say that I was right on this
Right.
matter. And Jacob Rees-Mogg also agrees with me, but I don't really. I would do it on my own if necessary, because I think that there's another element in this which we haven't discussed, which is the simple, stripped of all law, the simple moral one. I think this is cruelty, and I think it's mercilessness, and I believe
maybe she deserves a bit of
very
that.
strongly in showing mercy.
Maybe she deserves a bit of that.
No, nobody deserves it, and it is if you care about these things, and the as you know, the source of our law still remains, although it's often denied by the courts now. The source of ours still remains the Christian religion. The Christian religion absolutely insists on mercy as an element of justice, and to leave this woman out there forever in exile in this place where she doesn't want to be is merciless, and I am just against that.
I get that. I disagree.